welcome, dear video heads. I have a real trick-or-treat for you this evening. Autumn is upon us, and with it the certainty of death and the promise of rebirth. One of the ways we mark this changing of the season is the equinox. Another is Halloween. As our globe spins and circumnavigates the solar system, we're treated to another day of candy trading, costumes, and creeps. And that brings me to fairies, the original creep. Neither necessarily good nor necessarily evil, the word fairy has been used throughout Europe to describe all manner of crusty critters and ethereal elves. Thought to originate in the Faeries of the Achaemenid Empire or a shared Proto-Indo-European mythology, fairies have dotted our history for centuries, appearing in furry-friendly myth, A Midsummer Night's Dream, and fool-friendly photos, like this Cottingley Fairies photo fervently believed to be real by none other than Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, a noted occult weirdo. These are the very same creatures, along with spirits, said to roam free on Halloween night. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the times fairies appeared in Emmy-nominated animated specials. That's right, I'm going to talk about 1981's Faeries, an adaptation of a book by the same name by the legendary Brian Froud. I'll share some of Froud's background and discuss the themes of the film, and as a special treat, I have uploaded the cleanest copy on the internet to date. After finding a tape for a few dollars in a thrift store, I was shocked to see online prices above $400. Those prices have come down a bit since then, but a cleaner transfer has yet to appear online before now. Follow the link below to enjoy this wonderful special before I talk about it, or after. Premiering on February 25th, 1981 on CBS, Fairies came on the heels of Brian Froud and Alan Lee's 1978 book of the same name, itself meant to capitalize upon the success of the 1977 Dutch-authored book, Gnomes. Gnomes, by the way, is the book which spawned the 1980 television special Gnomes.
30 years old and just out of diapers.
Noted as the first appearance of David the Gnome.
My goodness, who's that arriving?
I think I know.
Star of a later series who spent most of his time riding around on a toothless fox.
Avalanche, let's go, Swift!
And getting into anime battles. I'll give you a quick recap of the film and show you exactly where in the book some of these creatures appear. So let's traipse through that fairy door, shall we? Now, the story in Fairies was invented for the film, meaning it isn't lifted from the book, but rather draws on the Fianna cycle of Irish mythology. Oisin is returning with his beardfellows from a hunt meant to gather game for his manhood feast, but they're empty-handed.
A bad day's hunt, lads. Nothing for the pot tonight.
Bummer. They look pretty well to do, so they'll probably just buy some meat and call it hunted, but they'd really rather have some dead animals. Oisin spots a deer and, perhaps because he hesitates to shoot, she reveals herself to be Niamh, fairy princess and all-around blue babe.
Come, mortal.
She coaxes him into the fairy circle, and before you know it, he's transported to the realm of the fair folk. Interestingly, Oisin means fawn because part of Oisin's story in actual Irish legend is that a druid turns his mother, Sive, into a deer. A hunter, Fionn, caught her but did not kill her, and this turned her back into a human just like the fairy Niamh in the opening. Fionn settled down with her, and after the druid turned her back into a deer, she escaped into the forest and gave birth. Niamh, by the way, is lifted from Oisin in Tir na Nog, one of poet Oisin's well-known tales. After an enchanting title sequence, Niamh leads Oisin to her father's castle, where he meets shape-shifting Puck, voiced by Frank at his welkerest.
Instead of a warrior, you've landed a minnow.
Puck,
A worm. A little chick.
we're losing time.
Look at how many characters are in this shot. Actually, there are countless direct references to illustrations in the Fairies book, which I'll try to show you later on. And for no reason in particular, here's a freeze frame of the shots with the mouse in the harness, just in case you needed it for anything. The king, who is not named but I guess is Oberon, is sitting in his throne whining about accidentally giving his shadow self-determination, which it immediately uses to become evil and turn on him. Oh well, at least the king has the comforting buttocks of his throne to soothe his frayed nerves. These things, by the way, are not statues, but are in fact well-trained furniture kinksters who the king is constantly groping. Hans Conried voices the king, and he's got an interesting dual role in this film.
Oh, you can see how the darkness weakens us fairy folk, saps our strength.
He also plays the villain, his shadow, who we'll see more of later. By the way, it kind of blows my mind that Americans made this, given the book was a British creation. I'd say they did a fine job, too. Anyway, the king puts a hit out on his own shadow, and Oisin agrees on the condition that he is returned home afterward. Darkness is taking over Fairyland, and we are soon treated to a lot of scary visuals after Oisin and Puck team up and head off into the woods. They immediately come upon 3 hags holding a dark ritual.
I calls for a toast to the shadows alive, to the goblins, their villainous mouths full of lies. May the night hide their deeds. May the sun never rise.
They toast to the shadows, goblins, and night, and a castle by the name of, I don't know, it's kind of hard to hear. Squalor Bread?
To Squalor Web Castle
Love the energy of the hag on the left.
and rule Fairyland.
Lots of great shots here, particularly this one of the puka turning past us. Is this a great Halloween watch or what? And I know some of you feel represented by that goat-headed monster. Our heroes escape this place of evil and a bevy of water hags and next encounter the Trows. They've got a kobold tied up. No, not the wide-hipped reptilian marital aids you're so used to, but an honest-to-God mythological kobold with hair and a big nose. While the Trows fight amongst themselves, Oisin proves his flourishing manhood by freeing the well-spoken kobold, who immediately joins their party. Puck tries to transform into an eagle to lead them across the lake, but he's suffering from alteration dysfunction as a result of the growing darkness and can only manage a few silly little birds. The woodpecker is so cute. They decide to row, which, in retrospect, might not be a great idea. There's this narrative device they keep using where they mention the names of the creatures because it's based on a semi-informational text and, I don't know, I guess they want to keep it educational. Once they land, we're treated to this exchange.
It's the Unseelie Court. They're on patrol for the evil shadow. Run for the trees! That bunch loves human flesh!
Not often we hear the phrase, loves human flesh, in a CBS animated special. Luckily, they stumble into the lair of the fair Derrig, a friendly sort with as many hands as he needs for a given situation.
In you come, then, in you come. Well, now, I'll tell you who I am, me fine young mortal. They calls me the fair Derrig.
But actually, upon closer inspection, we never see his legs, so it's more than likely those additional 3rd and 4th hands are just his dexterous feet jumping out of his hat. This is a section where the animators are really having a lot of fun. The fair Derrig is constantly moving, twisting, as he tries to coax the heroes into resting for the night. Not a good idea. After all, time is of the essence here. This is also the first time we hear about the red caps and why they're called the red caps.
And how are you going to get past the red caps? Old Shadow uses them for guards. They keeps their caps nice and red, don't you know, by deeping them in blood.
I don't know why, but I'm kind of surprised that this animated special was allowed to take so many risks, like evil goats, and hags, and blood, and human flesh. I suppose this was before the satanic panic really took hold in the late 1980s. By the way, I'd like to highlight the difference between my version and the Next Specs version of the film during this scene, so here's a side-by-side. Really allows you to appreciate the lines, doesn't it? Finally, our heroes make their way into the castle and face off against the Shadow.
Who intrudes upon my perfect darkness? Whoa, what have we here?
Let me just say, I adore the Shadow's design here. He's essentially a dragon made of darkness, capable of changing size proportional to the shadows around him. Hans Conried always does amazing work in villainous roles, but there's a particularly mythological sort of psychosexual drama going on here. He wants to make Princess Niam his.
No more of your sweet pixies, charming fays, or despicable little chameleons like you, Pat. However, Niam, that vision of beauty, will survive, and she will be mine.
Seems like normal villain behavior until you remember that he is the shadow of Niam's father. One shudders to contemplate a fate like that, but it's not unheard of in fairy tales, as we've seen in my Grimm's Fairy Tale Classics episode. Although the animation style calls to mind CBS's storybook series and is full of whimsy and light, the aims of the villain are incredibly dark and represent the worst parts of the shadow self. He actually claws Oshin and draws some serious blood in this scene. Wow. Oshin tangles with the toothy monster while the army of redcaps hack at the door. The shadow tries to blow out the candle to cement his power, but the clever kobold adds another candle to his hat and turns the tables of luminosity.
Hurry, fools!
The shadow bested, Puck's powers return, and he finally transforms into something. This cute, plump eagle.
Let's get out of here. This is my chance to save your life.
Love how the hair fits on his feathered head. Peace returns to Fairyland by way of another dance to this film's lovely violin theme.
And dancing. Let every fairy give thanks to young Oshin and his friends.
And Oshin returns home to find his horse covered in carcasses.
Good heavens! Look at that game! What a feast we'll have tomorrow!
How could you possibly have caught all that? You've only been out of our sight for a few minutes.
Well, you see, that is...
I love this frame. What a bad boy. So that's Fairies, directed by Lee Mishkin. Lee earned his laurels by winning the Oscar for Best Animated Short Film with Is It Always Right to Be Right? A cauldron of convenient centrist pap narrated by Orson Welles, which suggests both sides have common ground.
As they listened, they discovered common beliefs they had not known before. They even began to see signs of humanity and noble purpose in those whom they once only knew as adversaries.
Well, when one side wants the death of the other, where are they supposed to meet in the middle? Grievous injury? Lee also directed an animation to accompany Roger Glover's 1970 song Love Is All, which was actually sung by Ronnie James Dio. This dude. Love all these unexpected connections, especially if I get to tell people about Love Is All, which is a great video with lots of cute little furries in it. Morgan Brittany, the voice of Niam, has unfortunately metastasized into a conservative political commentator in the modern day, and the less said about that the better. Yuck. Instead, let's turn to the lovely June Foray, aka Hag Number 1, aka Wolf Mom and Mowgli's brothers, who became a member of Nixon's enemies list after organizing a meat boycott in response to his policies. That's my girl. Now let's jump into the book, shall we? These are going to be a series of direct comparisons to actual photos from my partner's book, which he has owned since he was a young doggy. Enjoy! Froud's artwork and design has been celebrated for decades. His style, reminiscent of earlier fantasy artists like Arthur Rackham, delights in detail and exaggeration of the real into the unreal, as well as folk art traditions going back to medieval times. Froud served as a concept designer in The Dark Crystal and The Labyrinth, and is a huge part of the distinct style of both movies. He also did design work on 1989's visual banquet, Little Nemo, and has since authored and illustrated countless books about fairies and goblins, and is keeping the spirit of mythology alive. By the way, the baby in Labyrinth is his baby. Brian Froud's work naturally lends itself to furries because he does a lot of monstrous shapes, stretched out snouts and things. Alan Lee, on the other hand, is a prominent illustrator of Tolkien's work, as well as a designer on Legend, and one of the lead designers for Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films. Pretty cool couple of guys. As a final note, I was able to find a contemporary article by John J. O'Connor for the New York Times back when this film premiered. He mentions that Faeries, along with Bakshi's American Pop, was proof of an animation resurgence, and I kind of have to agree. He also mentions the film has enough incidents to fill 3 hours, and I couldn't agree more. I really wish Faeries had been at least an hour long, like Gnomes before it. Think of all the creatures we would have gotten to see. Oh well. I think the thing I love most about Faeries is that it's not trying to be part of a franchise. To compare, the 80s were full of fantasy shows, but they were things like the Smurfs and Thundercats, He-Man, and even Rainbow Bright. They were meant to sell toys, and of course they were entertaining in their own right, and they did have some truly important stories to tell. None of these shows are really trying to teach you anything about cultural history or mythology. Meanwhile, Faeries is over here pulling from the Fianna cycle of Irish folklore. How cool is that? Imagine if we had more support for animated tales from across the world. Well, have I got a treat for you? There have been multiple series like this. Of course, there's Grimm's Fairy Tale Classics, but I'd like to take a second to mention Animated Tales of the World, a 2001 animated series that aired on HBO. Each episode comes from a different country and has a different animation style. So you get everything from cell animation to claymation. And you can find it all on YouTube. I'll include a link to the playlist below. Share them with your favorite 7-year-old. Give them something other than mass-produced cartoons made by an AI. In a perfect world, something like this would have millions of views, and the child-exploiting YouTube market would have 0 and would not exist. Unfortunately, we live in a world where profit is more important than both art and our children, which is sad because those things are our past, our present, and our future. That's about all I have for today. Make sure to put out some offerings for the little folk this Halloween, such as milk, honey, alcohol, and so on. Hell, just mix them a cocktail. Before I end the show, I'd like to give a special shout out to 3 people today. After my sick dog and huge vet bill and electrical surges requiring repairs back in July and August, my entire air conditioning system just shut down last week thanks to an irreparably rusty condenser. Ducts were collapsing in the walls and it had to be replaced. I have lost my life savings, but through the support of animals like Penny and Plexo and Cania, I will hopefully be able to pay the bills and keep the lights on this month. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Halloween is usually a happy time for me, and you've done a lot to keep it that way. For my viewers, please check out my Ko-fi if you'd like to send me a few bucks. And thank you so much. I've never had such a long streak of bad luck. Once again, I'd like to thank my lovely Laserdisc Patreon supporters. For only $5, I will replace your name with a changeling so that it will never be seen or heard from again in the world of humans. So thank you, Saint Hyena, Cindy, Medicine, Eli Fox, Aaron the Wolf, Spatchadoo, Goblin Horde Studios, Wise Bear 288, Calanitas, Ferret Fire, Leah Mentine, King Butt Stallion, Starlight Prancer, Nobody 26, Iris J, Aldraki, Pathia Red Toner, Dr. J, PhD in Moon Bunnies, Felis Rin, Warbird, Carrot Azurdi, Kausu, Jimbo Husky, Tosca, Quadzilla, Neon Tapir Guts, Kadath, Dornassus, Chrono Flash, Dominic Foxley, Victor the Mewtwo, Kilbaro Khan, Delano Possum, Alex McFall, Joe the English Otter, Silly Scotty Dog, Kooky Trails, Plexo, Graham Stoat, Stubadub, Crown, Norman Whitetail, Goddle Drury, Princess Isabella, Vera Lycaon, and Miorza.